Are you looking for an inspiring listen? Something to motivate you? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Women of the Northwest, where we have conversations with ordinary women leading extraordinary lives. Motivating, inspiring, compelling. Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 20 of Women of the Northwest, the place where meaningful conversations happen. I'm your host, Jan Johnson. Been waiting for today's guest is my own younger sister, Ann Schwarz, who lives with her husband, Jay, in Eugene, Oregon. She is an amazing artist, a grandma, has a cute little terrier, likes to garden, and has come a long way from raising two kids in poverty to a successful etched glass business. Ann, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you for asking.
I'm glad you could join us here today. I wanted to talk about, let's see, now that you brought it up earlier before we got started, Ann is my sister, my little sister by 3 years. And our biggest memorable event in our life was when she shot me in the leg. We were out target shooting with my mom and some friends. I was getting ready to shoot a 30-06, so I was kneeling down, and she was next to me with a pistol, and of course, neither of us knew what we were doing. And why would a 9-year-old have a pistol anyway? And it went off through my legs, both legs, out in the desert in Arizona. But I have lived to survive, and I may have gotten a few extra chores out of her, just guilt chores at the time. All right.
Of course, I should do. Shooting my sister in the leg.
Right. Well, it's one of those that I can use all the time when there's like 2 truths and a lie. I can always throw that one in there because who would believe that?
Yeah, who would believe that?
Nobody, huh? All right. So let's see. After you graduated from high school, what kind of journey did you go on with your life?
Oh, I just wanted to be able to take care of myself. That was my biggest thing. I wanted to live without family rules, and so I moved out, had roommates, and just worked Jack in the Box for a few months, and then I worked at the city of Scottsdale as a water meter reader, which was quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked as a reserve firefighter, the first one in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was had a lot of pride in that, and I really enjoyed it. And then I went to Arkansas to stay with Mom for about 6 months. She was teaching at Arkansas State University in Jonesboro, and I stayed with her for 6 months, and I took 1 semester of only art classes. And it was fantastic. It really opened my eyes to what I really wanted to do with my life. And what my passion was to make art.
So you came by that naturally. Mm-hmm. Growing up with artists and being the culture that we grew up in.
Well, and we went to more art museums and art displays and, sculpture gardens and things like that than most people who studied art all their lives. Mm-hmm. We had more exposure, and, when we were girls, we went to the Louvre in Paris, and I remember standing in front of a painting, and it just brought tears to my eyes. It was just so beautiful, amazing. Going to see the David in Italy, and couldn't even believe a person could create such amazing beauty. So yeah, I've always been moved by beautiful artworks.
Well, and don't you think that just growing up with, I don't remember so much our dad doing that, but I remember Mom always just having us notice things, noticing the texture in the sand or noticing the the colors that are in the bark of the tree, or, the way the sky looked, or the colors that were melded together and stuff. So I think we were taught to look at things.
And she always had something going. She was always making something.
Mm-hmm.
She was always getting ready for the next exhibition that she was going to enter. And, and do you remember going to Saturday morning art classes that she taught at Arizona State University? And I remember, she'd darken the room and she'd tell some wonderful story about, monsters or creatures or something. And then she'd turn the lights on and we could draw or paint or do anything we wanted. After hearing the story, we were all excited about what it was and what it could look like. And
Yeah.
That was her way.
Well, we were taught to use our imagination.
Mm-hmm. Well, and did you know that she went to the Burris School in Indiana, and it was I'm searching for words. It was a school where imagination was the whole method of teaching.
Right.
It wasn't rote learning.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And she told this story about how she, one of her assignments was to make a diorama of a entrance to a storefront. And so she went to the storefront, she measured everything about it, and then she went back and made a little one to scale. That's amazing. That was a class for her in high school.
Wow.
Or whatever it was. Yeah.
I never heard that story. Wow. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, and so, but you didn't stay a firefighter or any of that. And at some point you rode a motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah. That was during that time. I had a little motorcycle. Yeah. Well, my boyfriend had a motorcycle, and I didn't want to ride on the back. I wanted to be in control of my whole thing, so I got a motorcycle too.
That worked for you. Well, I remember maybe when I was almost, I don't know whether I was still in college or out of college or whatever, but visiting you, and you didn't exactly live in the nicest area of town. I remember gunshots and other kind of things. How did you get from there to getting to a career?
I married a blues musician, so that was a turn in my life. And we made a living by buying and selling antiques and collectibles at a swap meet. And then I also etched glass on the side. And the way I started etching glass was I went to visit Dad up in Prescott, and he was renovating this little house, and there was a transom window over the front door that a friend of his had etched. And I went, that is a way to make art where I could make a living. It was like a light bulb turned on. So I bought a compressor and I started etching glass, but really, I didn't know about business at all. I didn't know how to get my name out or do that kind of thing. That was just beyond what I really knew. So what I would do is in Phoenix, there was so much construction going on. Anytime I saw like a restaurant going in or something, I would stop in and I'd say, I could etch your boot dividers.
Oh, yeah.
Etch your front door. Things like that. Because I didn't charge all that much. To me, it was a lot of money, but for them, it wasn't that much. So I picked up some jobs off and on that way, and then bought and sold antiques. And then we had a little house down there, and we sold it and moved to Eugene. And in Eugene, there wasn't all that construction, but there was the Saturday market. And so I wanted to sell etching at the Saturday market, but you can't sell architectural pieces there. So I had to figure out a way to make a product to sell it.
And so what were some of the obstacles that you faced in order to get this business going then?
Well, it was, first of all, how to make a product that I could sell. I mean, I was selling, strung beads, basically, and earrings and things like that at the Saturday market. But at one winter market, there was a guy who set up kind of kitty corner from me, and he had painted glassware, like he sold decanter sets with wine glasses, and he had one of those tape guns, and I could hear that tape gun going all day long. Every time he boxed up something, I went, he is selling a lot of that glass. And so I tried a bunch of different ways to see, the only way you're going to make money doing anything is if you can do a consistent job and do it quickly. Those are the two things. You have to be able to...
Time is money.
Yeah. And so I knew that I couldn't hand cut a stencil on every piece of glassware and be able to sell it and make any money. I just wouldn't do. But that's how I did architectural glass. So I knew that would never do it. And I just kept experimenting with different types of materials to find something that I could hand cut a stencil with, but then reuse it over and over again. So
what materials did you use?
Well, I tried some metal, like thin metal, and that didn't work. And then I tried like doilies. I tried etching with doilies, and doilies held up pretty well because they were plastic. You know, those old plastic doilies?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that worked. And then our sister Sue was working at a bicycle trailer company, and they had these vinyl windows, and she had some leftover damaged vinyl, and she gave me some pieces of that, and it worked. It worked really well. And
how thick was the vinyl?
It wasn't as thick as what I use now, but it...
Like a piece of tag board or something, or?
Yeah, about that thick. Yeah, about that thick. And I could cut it out, and because it was clear, I could see through it, so I could see where I was placing it on the glass. And at first I used spray glue on it to glue it onto the glass so I could hold it in place. But then I figured out that I didn't need the spray glue if I held it just right while I was sandblasting. The sand, the pressure of the sand as it came out, it held the stencil into place.
Okay.
And that's how I developed my technique. And then the way I got glass was one time I was at the swap meet, and there was a guy who had brought a bunch of Mexican glass, you know, that beautiful brown Mexican glass with the little blue edge clear. Well, he had a storage unit of it, and he had a table full of glass, and he was selling it for like $0.25 a piece.
Oh my!
$0.10 a piece. It was super cheap, and I had saved up a couple $100. I know it doesn't sound like much, but at the time,
yeah.
Yeah. So I drove over. I bought all he had at the table, and then he gave me his card. We met at his storage unit, and I spent my entire $200 with him. And I came back with just boxes of stuff, just, you know, a lot. And so I could experiment with the designs I could cut. And that's essentially how I started. And I went to the holiday market, and because the glassware was so cheap to me to begin with, the way I figured out how to price it was every week I'd raise the price another buck or two
and see what the market would.
Yeah, until it stopped selling as quickly, and then I dropped it back down to the previous price.
Huh.
And I made so much money for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like blown away.
And didn't you, that must have made you feel validated.
Oh, yeah. And still today, as far as I know, I'm the only one that uses this method of sandblasting etched glassware. And so once I developed the technique, and then over the years, I've gotten better and better. I've gotten shading and, big scenery. At the time, I was just like putting a couple leaves on a glass and, calling it good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But gradually, I developed the technique where I could do entire sceneries and, just, it was amazing for me. And then I worked my very first street fair where I didn't have to send pictures of the work in, because that was photographing etched glass is hard.
Oh, yeah, because of the reflection and.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just really hard to make it look good. And there was a street fair in Seattle, and you could send the actual pieces up there, and then when they juried them, they bought all my pieces right. Instead of sending them back, they just bought them right there. And I got into that show, and I went up there and I sold everything but maybe one box full of glass was left at the end. And for me, that again.
That was a turning point. For people who are not in an art world like that, describe what it's like to, what do you have to do to be juried?
Well, this was back in the heyday of street fairs. The way you jury is you have an application where you describe your technique, and then you describe who you are, and you pay a fee, and the fees vary from show to show, and then you send in slides of your work, and then jurors, there's usually 3 or 4 professional gallery owners or artists or people in the business, and they sit in a room and they read your information off while they're showing slides of your work, and then the jurors score them, and if you score high enough, then they let you in their show. And then you have to send them some hundreds of dollars, depending on it, sometimes over $1,000, just to be in a show. And then you have to have a booth with a setup so you can display all your work.
So there's some of the challenges was figuring out the booth and transporting things and how to.
Yeah, you have to have a vehicle that runs well enough to get you there. You have to have accommodations once you get to this destination. So you have to have a hotel, or maybe somebody that lives in that town where you can stay. I mean, there's a lot to it.
Even carting the stuff,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, transporting it, getting it, even the time it takes to get it in and out, and what kind of displays and tables and
then what you make to take to that particular show, what the price points you're going to have, how many of this, what color, because inevitably someone comes up to your booth and they say, "Oh, I would really like that, but do you have it in this color?" And of course you don't.
That's the one color I don't have.
Oh, darn. Okay, well, nice work. And they walk away and you just lost a sale. So
wah, wah, wah.
Right. In the heyday, I would bring so much stock, and glass is heavy.
Yeah.
And it breaks.
fragile.
Yeah. So there were challenges. Every crafts person I know is always jealous of jewelers.
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
tens of thousands of dollars worth of stock in a suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
And they just pop up their little table and fill their little display, and they're good to go. We're all jealous of them.
I would think that part of a side benefit of a business like that is you get to meet all kinds of people.
Yeah. Well, and what's really nice too is you always get to know your neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
whoever is set up right around you, because you ask them to watch while at your booth while you go to the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
pick up something to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and then once I met Jay, then I started doing wholesale shows so we could sell to galleries.
Okay.
And then we also had employees so we could make enough stock to sell to galleries
Mm-hmm.
at that time.
And all of that, of course, gets into your whole business sense and the challenges of taxes and all paychecks and all of that kind of stuff too.
Creating a catalog
Mm-hmm.
that shows your work, that gives you price points.
Website.
And then Jay created a whole system where every piece is coded. So when we write out a code, we know exactly what the person ordered and how I need to make it in order to fill the code. And then it keeps track of all our raw stock and finished stock, and yeah, there's a lot to it.
Dude, describe your sandblasting equipment and where do you do that?
Well, Jay built, my husband Jay, the best partner I could possibly have. He built it's a big glass booth, and I call it a booth. It's like a room,
Mm-hmm.
pretty big. It's probably 20 by 30.
Mm.
And I have what's known as an air desk, which is a filtration system that sucks air down and away. So I sit at this desk and I turn on this machine and it sucks away most of the fine dust,
Mm-hmm.
the finest of the fine dust. And I wear a Tyvek suit and eye protection, which is a welding goggle that I put foam around to protect my eyes, and then it has glass panels that I see through, and then those panels can be changed out because the sandblasting blows back into my face and it picks up the surface of that glass panel. So those are really cheap and you can change them out. It doesn't cost a lot of money. And then I slip a little, what I call a cheater in there. It's a magnifier glass so that it helps me see what I'm working on.
Oh, yeah.
And then a respirator and then gloves. So I'm completely suited up. And then Jay rigged I just have a gravity feed sandblaster. And the nozzle hangs down, but I control it with a knee pedal.
Oh.
So I don't have to squeeze the handle because that would my hands are wearing out as it is, but that would wear them out even more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I can do production.
So tell me about, of all the things that you've done, let's talk about architectural glass. What's been your favorite piece?
Architectural glass? Oh, I did these banana leaves for this woman. She lived on a golf course, and she wanted a lot of privacy, and her bathroom faced this golf course, so she had to have, something to prevent people from just being able to look into her bathroom. So it was mainly etched, but these banana leaves, they just turned out really beautifully. They had a whole lot of detail, and they were very subtle and just really pretty. That was one of the prettiest things I've done.
And do you have some of that glass in your house?
Oh yeah, we are finishing up our kitchen remodel, and
Which is
we
beautiful,
have
by the way, with all your handmade
incredible.
cabinets and yeah.
It's so beautiful. Anyway, we have a room divider banister that goes between the kitchen and the living room, and I am going to etch 3 panels below the cherry banister, and then one of the cabinets in the kitchen, it will also be etched.
I can't wait to see that. That's going to be
And
really neat.
me too. We just ordered the glass, and it's really thick. And so our color scheme in there is the cherry maple wood. So those are kind of brown. And then we have a granite countertop that has browns and oranges and colors like that. And then the walls are a light green. So the glass is thick and it'll have a greenish tint to it. So it'll kind of pick up the wall color.
Oh, yeah.
So pretty.
Oh, I can't wait
So
to see that.
pretty.
What do you think has rubbed off on your kids or on your granddaughter?
Well, my granddaughter, I go on and on. She's very creative. She loves to write stories and draw, and so she illustrates her stories, and those are really fun. Trevor doesn't really do any graphic art, but when he was in high school, he had some ceramics class, and he made a couple of things, which I, of course, being mom, have kept. They were very good. They were very sensitively done.
Huh, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And then,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Marilyn has made jewelry.
Oh, and she draws better than I do.
Really?
Yes. She is very, very talented. She's extremely talented.
Yeah.
From the get-go, when she was about, I'd say 8 or 9, I was making these little demos, sculptures and faces and things, and she made this little girl that is just the sweetest little thing. Of course, I kept that too. But it's just
you have to.
so sweet.
Yeah.
It has so much emotion in it. It's just a tiny little thing. But yeah, very sensitive.
Don't you feel like that as a parent and a grandparent, isn't that one of the neatest things that you can pass down to your kids?
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you this, when I took care of Mom, she had Alzheimer's, that I would go over and tuck her into bed at night. So, to make sure she was all safe, and tuck her in, make sure she was good. And at night she would say to me, she would go, well, if I don't make it through the night, I just want you to know how happy and proud I am of all of you. And I just want you to know how much it really means to me to have my family, and I just feel so much joy and pride from you all. It's so touching. It's like, yeah, just the sweetest thing. The sweetest thing. So I think it all comes around and goes around. I think we get back what we put out.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to remember, is to tell people how, and especially our family, how proud we are of them.
Yeah, and she really, when she was more our mother when we were growing up, there was a lot of butting of heads. And I think she really wanted to express how much family meant to her, and how much she really deeply cared for us all. Yeah. It was sweet.
Yeah.
It was very sweet.
What would you tell your young friends or kids about pursuing ideas?
Well, When I work at the Saturday market and I have kids come up and they are impressed by the glass work, I want them to know that they too could make a living making art, because it's not a given. In our society, it's not a given that you can actually be creative and actually make a living from it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, usually it's, well, if you're going to go into art, you better be prepared to teach art, because that's the only way you're going to make a living at it.
Right.
You aren't actually going to be able to make a product and sell it and make a living. And it's quite a challenge, because it takes more than there are a lot of really talented, good artists, but they can't make a living because it takes more than just producing something to make a living at it.
There's a whole lot. You've got to have the business aspect and the whole, there's yeah, it's a big package.
Yeah.
And you have to have grit.
And you have to have the self-discipline to keep on making things.
Right.
You know, nobody told me I have to work from 9 to 5, but generally on my work days, I work from around 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I'm a nicer boss than any.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I say, yes, Ann, it's okay if you go walk the dog at noon and take an hour or two break. Yeah, and you can go dig up that plant, move it over there right now if you really wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a better boss than, but at the same time, I am pretty disciplined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be.
I don't just slack off and do nothing.
Yeah, it's a work ethic there.
Yeah.
So you are hoping to retire in the next few years. Where do you go from here?
Well,
what's on the bucket list?
The bucket list. Well, I tell you what, Dan, I have been dreaming of buying an electric vehicle. That's like a true fantasy of mine, because we just have the solar collectors just put on our roof. They're not hooked up yet, but I want to get a solar vehicle. And I just read, so what I do is I read about electric vehicles, and there's going to be a VW microbus that's going to be all EV. And so I thought, maybe if I got one of those, I could go travel around in a little
for nothing
microbus. Yeah, well, you'd have to, if I was going to be within range. But I really, there's some places I'd really like to see again. Do you remember going to Bryce Canyon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I want to go there again.
Yeah.
That's someplace I'd really like to see again. It's been in, dream imagery where I dreamed about being there. So I think it's really
supposed to happen.
Mark on me. So I want to go again.
Yeah.
Someplace I'd really like to go again. And I just like to, I'd like to paint. I'd like to putz around my house and just not have to work.
And not have a schedule, or not have somebody waiting for something on time and a time frame and whatever. Yeah, it's pretty dandy. I love it.
Yeah. And just, do house improvements and stuff.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I just like to say that I think if you have a dream, if there's something that if you want to express yourself artistically, I say go for it. It doesn't matter if you're going to sell it like I did. I mean, that's something that I was driven at a young age to do, is to make art, make a living that way. But making art is satisfying. Even if it's just photography where you aren't actually putting a brush to a canvas or something like that. It just feels good.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and especially if you do it with your kids, that's super fun.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, Ann, thank you. I am going to end this recording, and I appreciate having you here. This was a lot of fun.